Okay. Hey, everybody, we have a great show planned for you today. We talk the ongoing Oilers debacle with Todd Lewis of HockeyUnfiltered.com and the potential next coach to be fired. Then we discuss the unique uniforms that the Sharks and Kings will wear for the outdoor game with Paul Lucas of UniWatch. Then we cap it off with some Penguins talk with Sean Gentili of the Sporting News. All that and more coming right at you right now. Not bad. I'll do another
One
one now.
take, man. Look at you.
Yeah, now I'll try to get a second take, and it's going to take 4 days. All right. Hey, everybody, we have a great show planned for you today. We talk the ongoing Oilers debacle with Todd Lewis of HockeyUnfiltered.com and the next potential coach to be fired. Then we discuss the unique uniforms that the Sharks and Kings will wear for their outdoor game with Paul Lucas of UniWatch. Then we cap it off with some Penguins talk with Sean Gentili of the Sporting News. All that and more coming right at you right now.
2 in a row.
Okay, I'm going to stop there.
Quit while you're ahead.
Exactly. All right,
Okay.
that works.
So you have the Lucas lead or the Lewis lead in.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So then you want to start
Oh,
whenever you're.
Todd Lewis. Okay, so yeah,
So
I'll
we'll,
come back.
we'll we'll just do a little like maybe a minute or two of
Yeah,
banter.
just do a minute of banter, exactly. Then we'll get into Oilers real quick, like 10 seconds, then we'll go into the interview. All right,
Okay.
start it up.
Ready when you are.
All right.
Are you gonna kill the mic? Are you gonna kill the camera?
Yeah, it's probably better because it seems to build up latency.
Okay.
Pat, I am as excited as I can be, not only because of the holiday season, but this show today is going to be fantastic. Can't wait to get into it. Pat, are you enjoying the holiday season, or maybe you getting a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of things that are going on with that?
Family coming. I've been done with my Christmas shopping for about 3 months now, so the present buying has not been the problem. The problem is getting people together and I'm sure that all the or newly married people out there can relate or identify with that. Just because trying to coordinate who's going where for the holidays has been a pain, a royal pain, if you will, but not as big a royal pain as what's going on in Edmonton right now, where they got a lump of coal basically this year.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that you had your shopping done for 3 months because I'm pretty sure that the Oilers have been done for the last 3 months as well. We had the pleasure of talking with Todd Lewis of HockeyUnfiltered.com and also on SiriusXM. I got to sit down with Todd. We had a great talk. Let's have a listen. I think the most interesting takeaway with our conversation was Mike Yeo because he's not someone who I necessarily would have thought of right away, but I guess the expectations really have changed for that team, huh, Pat?
They've been the eighth seed basically 2 years in a row. I mean, I know they're in a hellacious division, but you had to think from Minnesota's perspective that when the Avalanche fell off and this stunning whole thing with in Dallas going on, that the Wild were going to be the team in Nashville spot or in Winnipeg spot right now. But I think they don't score enough goals really at all. And Thomas Vanek's basically been a nightmare there thus far. And they're too wing heavy from my vantage point. You talk about they have Zach Parise, they have Jason Pominville, and we mentioned Vanek and Niederreiter and the collection of just outstanding wingers or exceptional wingers in Minnesota. But I mean, up down the middle is where you win, and especially in the Western Conference. And I think they're about the 12th or 13th best, maybe 11th or 12th best centers with Granlund and Coyle and those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's a team that needs to just get to that next point.
I think the thing with Minnesota too, and we'll just touch on this real fast while we're finishing up, that you mentioned the expectation. The expectation is there. They spent the money. They went out and got Parise and Suter and Vanek, and they traded for Pominville, and they traded for Niederreiter, and this is year 3 of this rebuild. This is not like the cute little Wild, making strides. And we said they've been the 8th seed 2 years in a row, and they needed to be doing more than that. And so I think you're right. It was a really interesting takeaway from Todd's perspective, it wouldn't stun me to see Mike Yeo get fired, even though I like him. I've interacted with him before.
You know, it's just one thing. It's interesting because it just shows how quickly expectations can change.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, they were so happy to make the playoffs in a sense. They won a round. They gave Chicago a pretty good series. Mike Yeo is the talk of the town. But the thing is, when you come into the next year and people say, well, you have to be better now, and then you're not. If anything, you're almost worse or just the same. I think you have to make changes or get better in some way, because when you put the food out there, you want to eat it, and that's what Wild fans have right now, is that they saw playoff success, they want more of it, and the expectations are going to be there for this team.
Speaking of expectations, we all have high expectations of outdoor hockey games. How do you like that segue? We have high expectations for the outdoor hockey games, but we also have high expectations for the attire of the teams in the outdoor playoff or the outdoor NHL games. Dave, what did you think of the Stadium Series jerseys that were unveiled this week?
I don't know if there's a word that can really describe how bad those jerseys are. For me, the fact that they're this cookie cutter kind of feel to them, I'm a big fan of having throwbacks or faux backs, if you may, kind of, even if a team doesn't have the kind of history like these two teams do, at least give it an old school feel. The white pants are just, they're terrible. I mean, what are they going to try to be snowmen or something? The Kings really struck out with that one, that's for sure.
In California, no less. Well, we were both so floored by the uniform choices unveiled this week for the 2015 Stadium Series. Obviously, the Sharks and Kings will play leave a beautiful Levi Stadium. But we had to get a professional opinion about the aesthetic aspect of that game. So we decided to reach out to Paul Lucas of UniWatch, whose UniWatch blog is featured on ESPN.com. And we discussed with him the state of NHL uniforms and what they're going to look like for the outdoor games. Dave?
Okay, so I guess we'll jump back into it now. Interesting perspective. I think he hit it right on the head with the idea that the jerseys are so cookie cutterish right now, and that they have this template. And I think when he alluded to Washington doing their own thing, and even Chicago, maybe we don't like Chicago's jerseys, but they still did their own thing. They just decided, all right, we're just going to add a little bit to our uniform, a little tweak, and go with it. To me, it's still better than what the Sharks and the Kings are coming out with for this year.
Thanks also to Paul Lucas for making us both feel young by making us feel, because the fact that being involved in a trend and watching it happen is it's a unique perspective, but he made me feel young, even though I'm fast approaching 30 here.
Yeah, me too. That's for sure.
So the Penguins are flying high. They're first place in the Metropolitan Division as of this broadcast. They're at 46 points as of this broadcast, and that leads the entire Eastern Conference. They're 4 points ahead of the Islanders in the Metro. They're 3 points ahead of the Lightning as the Lightning prepare to play Friday night. But yet they've been stricken with some adversity, as well as some weirdness. Sidney Crosby has had the mumps. Marc-Andre Fleury was tested this week for the mumps. Ole Mata has had cancer and the mumps so far this year. And yet the Penguins haven't missed a beat. They've won 6 of their last 10, and they have only lost in regulation one time since Chris Kunitz went on IR on December 2nd. Sean Gentili of the Sporting News is around the Penguins a lot, and he joined us to discuss the state of the Penguins.
Very interesting. That I think, to me, the biggest difference is Marc-Andre Fleury. If you look at, sure, this team added a little depth and that kind of thing, but to me, when I look at it, I think the biggest difference is that he has looked like an elite goalie this year. Sure, he's had his meltdowns in the playoffs, but right now, you can't take anything away from the fact that he has been one of the very best goalies in this league, and honestly, he's playing himself into the Vezina conversation right now.
I was going to say, Sean mentioned that, and you don't really think about Fleury and Vezina in the same breath just because of the flameouts, but 6 shutouts, a .930 save percentage, a .201 goals against. I mean, who is this guy?
Yeah, he's certainly made strides, and you know what? You have to give it to him for bouncing back because a lot of guys, especially with the way that he struggled, could never make it back. Maybe they get mentally just destroyed or whatever, but he's a guy who knows that he has a team in front of him that if he plays well, not even great, but well in the playoffs, they could win a Stanley Cup. And I think now he maybe he's focused, another year older, and he makes them that much more dangerous.
We discussed this last week, the fact that when you bench a goalie, he's not necessarily done. This isn't the NFL, but I thought for sure that when Vokun replaced him 2 years ago, that he was finished in Pittsburgh, and then he rebounded, and he was okay last year in the playoffs. He probably wasn't the reason they lost. Obviously, Sean alluded to you could see it firsthand, the lack of depth in scoring, but the fact that he has rebounded and is playing so well this year, and maybe they're another year older defensively, but they've had injuries along that blue line too, and but his play has been really incredible. Dave, you want to do a little hot and cold?
Sure, let's do it.
So for my hot team is another team with the mumps. We'll just, it seems like everybody's been struck with the mumps these days. My hot team are the Rangers. Um, their AHL affiliate was announced to have the mumps Thursday. Lee Stempniak has the mumps and is being treated. So does Derek Brassard, although he's returned skating. But they're firing on all cylinders these days. They swept their Western Canada road trip in Calgary, Edmonton. Actually sent Dallas Eakins to the proverbial firing squad with their 2-1 win last Sunday. But they went 3-0 on their Western Canada road trip. They outscored opponents 12-3 in those 3 games. They've won 4 straight, including a win over Pittsburgh at home at the Garden last week. Ryan McDonough's healthy, and Rick Nash is playing like the guy who the Rangers acquired him to be. He has 20 goals as of this broadcast, tied for second in the league behind only Tyler Seguin. He's tied with Vladimir Tarasenko. He's on an 11-game point streak with 3 multi-point games in that stretch. We all know they're going to get solid goaltending from Henrik Lundqvist, but he even chipped in an assist in Calgary this week. The Rangers are starting to look like the team that went from the basement to the playoffs to the number 2 seed in the Metro last year, and they're starting to look like a scary team, especially with all the veterans and all the basically a similar team that they had last year minus a few guys. Just keep them away from the Lightning because the Lightning have kind of owned them this year. For my cold team, we just touched on Calgary, so we'll touch on them again. The Calgary Flames are ice cold. They've been extinguished, if you will. They have 6 straight losses as of this broadcast. Of course, it's a huge win for the analytics community. They're 3rd worst in Corsi for percentage, according to the great analytics website, waronice.com. Their goal scoring well has run dry, and they played some good teams and some hot teams. They lost to Buffalo in that stretch. They lost to Chicago in that stretch. They lost, obviously, to the Rangers Tuesday night, but they have scored just 10 goals in their last 6 games. And they're basically, at this point, a fringe playoff team now with, 4 months to go in the season. I don't think Calgary gets there.
I don't either. I think for them, it's kind of struck 12 just a little bit. They're moving in the right direction. As we talked about before with Todd, re-signing Bob Hartley to an extension was the right move. You want to get some consistency, but for me, the fact is they have to get better defensively outside of their top pairing. They need some depth guys. Hiller's been good. Certainly they could upgrade from him, but I think that Hiller is maybe not necessarily the issue. But for me, I see the Flames as a team that they really are starting to end up where they probably belong.
I agree with that. And they signed Hiller to be the guy. And, you look at how he was replaced so quickly last year down the stretch and in the playoffs. Maybe, they signed him to be the guy, but can he be the guy on a playoff team is the question. Dave, hot and cold, who you got?
Well, for my hot team, I'm going to go with the Sharks. They've been really good lately. Funny enough, they've won 8 games. They won 8 of their last 9 games. Real quick, who's the team they've lost to in those 9 games? Be the last team you'd think they'd lose to.
Oh, I should know this, but enlighten me.
The Edmonton Oilers.
Oh, I knew that. They can't win in Edmonton. They just can't.
Yeah, I guess it's too cold for the Sharks to swim up there. I don't know. All right, all puns aside, this team has been very good lately. And it was funny because I think we've talked about them a lot because they've been such a polarizing team this year because of the issues that they had in the dressing room and the idea of Tom McClellan possibly being relieved. All of a sudden they look very, very good. And I don't know if it's just the idea of just getting farther away from that situation where they had in the offseason or the fact that people are playing better. Joe Pavelski all of a sudden has been excellent. He's got 15 and 12 on the year. Brent Burns continues to be an offensive monster. Tommy Wingles is having the best season of his career. They have a lot of guys who are good on that team, and getting healthy is another part of it. To me, I look at this team and say, all right, they could end up being a 2 seed in that division. Maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, we didn't think that was possible. But are they better than Vancouver? They can be if they play their game, and I think LA is certainly not going to kill themselves to get to that 2 seed. So, can it be another year where the Sharks have a home playoff series that they should win? Quite possibly. They look like they finally have gotten past the shadows. And look, this team has done this before. They've had great regular seasons, so that should be no surprise technically with this team. But we'll see.
I think also with the Sharks, if they get a team like Vancouver, who they've had some playoff history, but also some playoff success against, I think they need to dodge as well as they can a meeting with the Kings, just because even though the epic series have been there, the Sharks and Kings, I would love to see it firsthand again, just because it's such a great series. You'll see it outdoors this year. It almost seems like that's what the league is building towards, is that Sharks-Kings first-round series, but the Sharks should want to dodge that series like the plague there, or like the mumps, if you will. Now, Dave, who do you have for your cold team?
I am also going to go with the San Jose Sharks. And you may ask why, because I made the case, I think, pretty well that they've been playing well. But the Sharks, I don't know what made them decide to do this, but the Sharks put out a holiday sweater rap video where a bunch of their guys are wearing sweaters and bling and elf hats and glasses, and they're rapping about Christmas stuff. Look, I know it's funny. It's certainly not Super Bowl shuffle level, but I don't know. To me, stick to what you do. It was pretty bad. Honestly, I was laughing pretty well while I was watching it. Thomas Hurdle being in that was pretty funny. Again, I don't know, Pat, what did you think of it? To me, it was funny, but it was a mess.
I think it was perfect that you called them the cold team, because they're literally cold, and that's why they needed their holiday sweaters, right?
Yeah.
So Randy Hahn was my favorite little cameo he had in there with the, I guess I would call it a pimp costume, more or less, with the glasses and the hilarious headphones and just the ridiculous sweater. But if you haven't seen it, I think we're posting it. We're embedding it in our post here. It's also available on NHL.com for those of you who don't know what we're talking about. But good for the guys to show a little character. We all get, we in the press corps love to get on hockey players for being vanilla and being boring, and we all know there's more personality there for hockey players. It was ridiculous, but good for them for showing a little personality.
I just hope that if someone were to ask Joe Thornton about it, that he doesn't give the response that he gave to the Thomas Hurdle incident last year, which I am not going to say what that was. If any of you listening remember that situation, was it Marlowe, or I think it was the Hurdle goal, right, when Hurdle had scored? And Joe Thornton basically said something that is not even R-rated. It's beyond that. So I'm not going to say it, but I just hope that that's not the kind of thing that we're going to get from the Sharks anytime soon.
We're still waiting for Jumbo's 4-goal game, though.
It'll happen.
Dave, it's the holiday season. This is our last podcast before Christmas. What are you looking forward to most next week?
To me, I'm not big on presents. I always feel like people don't know what to get me because I kind of go out and buy whatever I need throughout the year, that kind of thing. To me, it's more just being able to relax and make good food and just have a good time. I like that, but I don't know. I guess I don't know. I'm trying to. For me, Christmas is always. It's a little different this year because I'm starting off at my parents' house and going to my girlfriend's parents' house at night. So of course there's that jumble. Mm-hmm. But Yeah, overall, to me, I just like the idea that everyone is usually stress-free that day. Everyone's off from work. It's a good day. Usually, people aren't fighting. It just becomes a day where you're not gonna get in a fight with someone on Christmas or have a disagreement. So I like that it's always just a really nice day where it's consistent. I'm a big fan of consistency.
Me too. But I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to from a hockey perspective is the World Junior
Yeah.
Championships, which will start December 26th. Toronto and Montreal are hosting. Team Canada, as always, seems like the favorite. The U.S., who knows? But what I'm most excited about that is it's going to be hockey during the middle of the day. We always get those tournaments, whether it's the World Championships or the World Junior Championships, these non-NHL sanctioned, or the IIHF non-NHL sanctioned hockey, and we get it during the day. So it's the perfect thing to watch while you're playing with your toys, I guess.
I guess so. One more before we get out of here, Pat. What do you think is your favorite? If you had to name one favorite holiday movie, again, as Sean pointed out, I don't consider Die Hard a holiday movie. I don't care what anyone says. But what is your favorite one out there?
I you know I feel like I'm gonna catch hell if I don't say Home Alone, but I will say that my favorite holiday movie, I have to say Home Alone. I was gonna say Christmas Vacation,
Okay.
but if you put it up against Home Alone is just a classic. It's basically the perfect Christmas movie for our generation. It's basically the signature Christmas movie for our generation. And sequels are awful. I don't. The second one is not great, and the third one there's not even the same cast. So I'm not even going to consider the third one part of the series. But the first one is. I mean, my parents love Home Alone, the original. So it's something that brings the whole family together, but it also can placate people of our generation. Dave, what about you? What's your favorite holiday Christmas movie?
This one's a bit of a curveball, but I'm actually going to go with the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Ah,
Yeah, I
that's
know.
a great one. I love it too. It's terrific.
I'm a big Michael Caine fan. I just think he's a tremendous actor, and the singing was good. And they decided to go with a lot of no names just to get people who could actually sing. The Muppets are fun, of course. Production values wise, it's not a great flick, but I don't know. There's just something about it, and I've always watched that even from when I was younger. And I'm a big fan of Muppets Christmas.
I'll be honest. I watched it twice on Netflix so far. I watched it twice on Netflix before Thanksgiving even, and I forgot that Michael Caine was in it. But yeah, I agree. That would probably be number 2 on the list.
Yeah.
If I have to, I would have to include it. So yeah.
I think A Christmas Story kind of gets a little bit overdone now. Everyone kind of looks at that as, in a sense, the patron saint of holiday movies now. And to me, that one's kind of lost a little bit of its luster because everyone seems to be talking about that all the time.
Well, plus it's on for 24 hours straight every year on TBS. And like Sean was saying about Home Alone, I think I've seen Christmas Story. I don't know if I've ever watched it from start to finish, but I've seen every part of it like 300 times. So I have to give a shout out to my dad's favorite Christmas movie, which is The Bells of St. Mary's. If you're unfamiliar with it, which I'm sure you are, it had Bing Crosby in it. Just look it up.
Okay.
And also It's a Wonderful Life. I always watch it on Christmas Eve. And I'll be honest, it does get dusty in the room when It's a Wonderful Life gets on.
Yeah, that certainly is a good one too. I was watching that the other day. Anyway, wanted to thank all of our guests for today. We couldn't have done it without you. AOL Sports, also want to give a shout out to them at AOL Sports. They've been hosting our podcast. They do a tremendous job. Brian Fitzsimmons, he's the best.
He's the best.
He is. And it's funny just looking at the stuff also. The other day, people might not know I'm actually half Jewish as well, so I was lighting my menorah while we were setting up the Christmas tree. So for anyone out there who's also celebrating Hanukkah, I don't want to forget that one as well. Happy Hanukkah to you as well. And as far as other holidays go, I can't say I dabble in those, but
a happy Festivus to the rest of us.
Exactly. And whatever you're celebrating, just enjoy the time with your family, and and watch some hockey. That too.
That's it. Thanks, Steve.
All right.